Thank you. Everybody comes up and says that. You know, I should demand a recount. I thank all of you for being here. I thank your great governor. He's a wonderful guy, and I know you appreciate him very much. I don't know if you know the story of the 2 inmates in the state prison in the chow line, and one of them turned to the other and said, "The food was a lot better in here when you were governor." I made the mistake of telling that joke in Illinois once. They were not amused. And you know, Leah's experience as mayor is important. It's important. Mayors are important. They're the people that deal closest to the people. I'll never forget, I had a very dear friend for a long time who was the mayor of Scottsdale, Arizona. His name was Herb Drinkwater, and he always kept his name in the phone book. And one night at 2 a.m., the phone rang, and he answered the phone, and it was some guy that had a problem. So he went and got pen and paper and wrote it down. Said, "I'll get back to you." You know. The next night at 2 a.m., he called the guy back. And he said, "I've got the answer to your problem." He says, "I knew you'd be up." So, and again, I want to thank all of you who supported me in the last campaign. And look, after I lost, I slept like a baby. Sleep 2 hours, wake up and cry. Sleep 2 hours. Not to worry. And I'd like to ask your sympathy for the families of the state of Arizona, because Barry Goldwater from Arizona ran for President of the United States. Morris Udall from Arizona ran for President of the United States. Bruce Babbitt from Arizona ran for President of the United States. I, from Arizona, ran for President of the United States. Arizona may be the only state in America where mothers don't tell their children that someday they can grow up and be president of the United States. So I thank all of you, and I'm so glad to be back in this wonderful state in a beautiful evening. By the way, Cindy and I and our kids and friends just last week spent a few days out on Lake Powell. You know, the marina is in Arizona, the rest of it is all in Utah. We claim it anyway, but it's a great recreational experience. And so it's wonderful to be back. And I want to thank you again for your support for Mitt and Ann Romney. I want to thank you again for your support of them. It's a tough time. They're a great family. They are great people. They are good and dedicated Americans who are being savaged in the most unfair fashion now with this flood of negative ads that have inundated the airways. But I promise you, I am convinced that Mitt Romney will be the next president of the United States of America. There was once a heavyweight champion of the world named Joe Louis, and he was fighting a guy who was a very capable fighter, very good dance around the ring and counterpunch, everything like that. And he said, "Well, how are you going to beat this guy?" And he said, Joe Louis said, "He can run, but he can't hide." Well, Barack Obama can run, but he can't hide from his record of abysmal failure as far as this economy is concerned and as far as national security is concerned, and he can't hide from it. And sooner or later, the American people are going to say to him, "What's your plan? Are we going to have 4 more years of $5 trillion debt? Are we going to lay this burden on our children and grandchildren of $40,000 for every man, woman, and child in America? Are we going to have Obamacare, when they took $700 billion out of Medicare and put it into Obamacare?" And then they have the nerve to say that Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan are going to hurt Medicare. They've already give the $700 billion back, Obama, and then maybe we'll be able to help Medicare in America. So, my friends, sooner or later, the American people will become inundated with all these negative attack ads, hundreds of millions of dollars worth, and they're going to say, "President Obama, what's your plan? What's your plan?" Have you heard of a single proposal that he has yet? A single one? So that we could restore our economy? And I want to tell you, his budget, which, by the way, in the United States Senate, received 0 votes. Not even the Democrats voted for his budget. His budget has debts and deficits as far as the eye can see. My friends, that's not leadership. That is the liberal left-wing philosophy which has guided his behavior as President of the United States, which is spend, 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 tax, tax, tax. So what do we want to do? Let's get the richest people in America. Let's get the wealthiest. Let's tax them. The people who are the job creators in America. Let's tax them. That's not an answer to our economic difficulties, my friends. That's just class warfare. It hasn't worked in the past, and it won't work in this election. And I can tell you that Paul Ryan has a blueprint to bring our economy back and stop mortgaging our children and our grandchildren's futures. And it's tough medicine. My friends, we are in tough shape. It's going to take tough medicine. But I just want to mention to you again about Medicare. Paul Ryan's proposal is voluntary to start with. It would not affect anyone over the age of 55, and it would give seniors a choice. If they want to or not, go out, have a voucher, and go out and buy the health care that they want. So that is draconian, that's terrible. Remember, Obamacare was supposed to bend the health care costs down. It hasn't. It's bent it up, and dramatically so. And by the way, I don't want to take too much time on this, but I want to just tell you from personal experience, when we did Obamacare on the floor of the Senate, it was the sleaziest process that I have ever seen in my years in the United States. There was the Cornhusker kickback, and then there was the Louisiana Purchase. President Obama, when he ran for president, said he wouldn't have any lobbyists in the White House. He didn't. Had them in the Blair House. And they bought off the pharmaceutical companies and the hospitals and the AMA and the doctors and the AARP. They bought them all off. And my friends, the American people see through it, and I guarantee you, one of Mitt Romney's first items will be to repeal and replace Obamacare, and give people a health system that they can trust and they can afford. Now, President Romney, if I may be so bold, President Romney is going to need a strong right arm. He's going to need a majority in the United States Senate because it's important that the majority in the Senate can set the agenda. He's also going to need some foot soldiers in this revolution. He's also going to need some people who have the courage to stand up for the conservative principles of Ronald Reagan. And that person right here is Mia. Mia Love will be... Mia Love can articulate our conservative principles and beliefs as well or better than anyone I have ever seen. I'm sure you've watched her on Fox. Not often she's on MSNBC, but I'm sure you have seen her. She understands the conservative principles, but more importantly, or as importantly, is that she articulates them. And I want to tell you something very important. You, in November the 3rd, 6th, on November, if you're voting early, vote on the 3rd. But anyway, on November 6th, you have the chance, you have the opportunity to make history. You have the opportunity to send the first Republican African American to the Congress of the United States of America. That would be a wonderful thing to happen. Not only for Utah, but for the entire country. And I believe two things. One, she will be an instant star. And two, she will never forget who sent her and where she came from. I am convinced of that. So, my friends, this future is in your hands. It's going to be a tough race. And by the way, I would remind you, maybe in some respects, the most important vote that a member of Congress passes is the first vote when Congress convenes. You know what the first vote is? The first vote is the vote for the Speaker of the House of Representatives. So, we think we know who Mia Love is going to vote for, John Boehner, and we think we know who her opponent has voted for, Nancy Pelosi. So, right there, my friends, right there, you, no matter what the rhetoric might be, right there should be a deciding factor. I don't want Nancy Pelosi back as Speaker of the House of Representatives. We've had enough of San Francisco liberalism. I am honored to be here. I think that one of my obligations, and I take it very seriously, is to do everything I can to recruit and help and assist in whatever small way I can the next generation of leadership in this country. I am convinced that one of the leaders of the next generation of our Republican Party and our nation is before you tonight. So please remember the words of the late Mayor Daley of Chicago, who once said, vote early and vote often. Thank you all very much. Now, we'd like to respond to any questions or comments or insults that you might have. Thank you. Thank you for coming. We have microphones somewhere. We have some people on a work release program with a microphone over there. Good. And, so if you just raise your hand, he will bring the microphone to you. And I think we have someone on this side as well. Yeah, there he is.
Hi. Sorry.
Hi.
I'm a mom of a child with severe disabilities, and I know you say we have to cut, but I'm concerned with the cuts of the disabled and the Medicare, the Medicaid. And, you know, we've sat on the waiting list to get help for 4 years. There's over 2,000 families on the waiting list currently. Utah has 2 in every 80 kids born have autism. So I'm just wondering what the cuts are, or what you feel about the disabled and supporting them, and the cutting of services, because I advocate every year up at the Capitol pleading and begging not to cut. And Republicans, I'm a registered Republican county delegate, but they're not very nice to me up at the Capitol. So I'm just wondering what you will bring to the table when it comes to supporting the disabled.
Hello? Okay, this is working. Would you like me to? Okay. First of all, anyone who has said to you or anybody else that I'm going to pull out the rug from those who cannot help themselves and those who we have an obligation to help is absolutely lying to you. I want you to know that. One, there's so many times that we try and jump from one area and jump to another. I want you to know that what we're looking at is we have to try and reform our healthcare system, or else it's going to be gone completely. When you think about Medicaid, there's no transparency. There's no responsibility between the doctors and the patients. If you go into a hospital and a doctor gets a new piece of equipment, their job is to get as many people through to use that piece of equipment so they can pay it off. What we have to do is we've got to turn back. Instead of a fee for service, a fee for outcome. If we start aligning the incentives with the outcomes, we'll start getting better health care. We'll get better services, and we'll get more health care available for those who need it. And so anybody that says that is absolutely incorrect. I want you to know that.
Could I just add to that briefly? When Greece's economy collapsed, which it did because government grew and spending grew and all their social programs grew, and they could no longer pay for it and their economy collapsed. You know what the first casualty was? The entitlement programs, because they could no longer afford to sustain them. Now, I'm not saying to you that America is exactly like Greece, but I am saying by the year 2024, the Medicare trustees say that Medicare will be broke. Now, if the system is broke, how can we provide those much-needed care for people who are on Medicare? We can't. So we have to reform the system. We have to make reforms that will make it there for these young people in the audience as well as it's there now. So to say somehow we are going to continue on the path we're on Medicare, which the trustees have said the system is going to collapse, is an unrealistic approach. So what is the major fix to it? There are disincentives today to keep healthcare costs down. There are all kinds of gaming of the system. where hospitals and healthcare providers and others jack up the costs rather than reduce it. As you know, we now have an industry in telecommunications where costs continue to go down all the time. This device right here used to cost about 5 times of what it does now. But because of competition and because of new innovation, then costs have come down. There are ways to innovate in healthcare to bring costs down through the use of technology. For example, putting people's healthcare records on computers will reduce the error rate by some 90%, I'm told. So, but there's no incentives to do so because we have a system where the incentives are reversed. So, maybe the president thinks that the system is fine. Just day before yesterday, the Vice President of the United States said to an individual, "Don't worry, we're not going to change Social Security at all." Well, Social Security is going to go broke, so you're going to have to change it. Just like we did back in 1982, when the last time Social Security was going broke, Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill sat down together and they fixed Social Security for another 25 years. Mia and I are willing to sit down with Barack Obama or anyone to save Social Security and Medicare, but tough decisions are going to have to be made. And you want someone who has the courage to make those decisions rather than tell you something that's patently false. That's why Mia Love will be effective.